This is my experience traveling to Australia. So the first things I actually did was sell my camera equipment, sell my car, and get the working holiday visa. After that, I flew to Cape Town to upgrade my camera equipment. And then I flew to Germany to visit my best friend. And I was there for 2 weeks, and then after that I flew to Australia. When I flew from Cape Town to Germany, I flew over Dubai and I had a 3-hour overlay in Dubai. And it was actually quite an intense journey for me because it was the first time I actually went for solo traveling. When I landed in Germany, I thought to myself like, shit, how am I gonna do it to Australia? Because Australia is even further away and it's an even longer flight. But I managed. On the 18th of October, I stepped onto the flight in Frankfurt and then flew to Dubai, had another 3-hour overlay, and then from Dubai, I flew to Perth, Australia. And it's actually been crazy. I've actually been here for almost 3 months or 4 months, and it's crazy for me how time flies here. There's so much that happened and it's not always easy, but it is a very good experience. So after landing in Perth, I stayed in the hotel for 2 nights. I immediately organized myself my SIM card and my bank account. After those 2 nights, I actually checked myself into a hostel, and this was the first hostel I've ever been to. So this was quite something to adjust to. It was a bit challenging because all of a sudden you have to share everything, share the kitchen, share the bathroom, share rooms, and that is something to adjust to. But it is a very good experience. I feel this is one of the best ways to grow as a person. So I stayed at that hostel for 2 weeks, and it was actually a very cool hostel. It's called the Fremantle Prison Hostel, which is actually an old prison which they converted into a museum and a hostel. The actual rooms are from the actual cells from back in the day, which is quite an experience. So since then I've been hunting for jobs, specifically looking for farm work or regional work that would count for my 88 days to get the 2nd year visa. But since after COVID, lots of backpackers are back in Australia and there's such a high competition with finding jobs. It's actually crazy. Even finding accommodation is super difficult. You have to plan everything in advance. So I stayed there for 2-3 weeks in Perth, and then I actually got a job in Bunbury. So I traveled south with a bus, 2.5 hours. I checked myself into this exact hostel and I started my first job here. I actually quit after the 3rd day because the boss wasn't really treating me right. So I was unemployed again. But before I left Fremantle, I actually met a German guy. His name is Till, and since then we've been together in Australia. After my first week in this hostel, Till joined me here. And there was another girl in this hostel, her name is Yuha, and so the 3 of us were looking for jobs together. We first went for interviews and induction at the meat factory, quickly realizing that this is not the job for us. And I know, especially with the competition of getting jobs, we shouldn't be picky like that, but it was crazy, just not for us. So this one day we decided to get ourselves a rental car. It was a very spontaneous decision, and we drove that day back to Perth, got our car, came back to the hostel, and the next morning we actually drove around Bunbury and Donnybrook to look for farm work. We went to several different farms, but we only had luck with one of the farms. So this is where we worked then for 2 or 3 weeks until we were let go from the farm because the fruits weren't ready to get picked yet. So we were unemployed again. And that was just after New Year's. Since Yuha was gonna leave the following week, she decided she's not gonna look for another job. But Till and I, we were looking for another job again. One of the guys staying here in this hostel, he's working at a manufacturing company. It's a company that manufactures concrete pipes for water pipes and everything. But before I started that job, I drove Yuha back to Perth because she was flying back to Korea the following day. We had to say our goodbyes, and it was one of the hardest things I had to do. And the next day was our first day at the manufacturing company. And I think with all of the stress and saying goodbye to Yuha, I felt sick. So at lunchtime on my first day, I actually told my supervisor, I think I need to go home because I don't feel so well. And so during that night, I started feeling so sick. I had crazy fever and headaches. I couldn't even stand up to go to the toilet. And because of that, I took the next 2 days off from that job. That weekend, we got a message back from our first farm work. They let us know that their fruits are ready to get picked now and they need workers again. And since the manufacturing job didn't count for our 88 days, we decided, okay, let's go back to the farm work. So, Till and I, we both resigned at that manufacturing company, which means I only worked there for half a day. That was the shortest job I ever had. So now we are back working on the farm. And what do we do there? So we first started with apple thinning, and now currently we are picking plums and nectarines. And in the near future, we will start picking pears and apples. Now you are wondering, in what room am I? I actually took over the caretaker role from this hostel, which means I have to do the check-ins, the check-outs, the weekly payments. I have to switch off the gas at night and switch it back on in the morning. I have to take out the bin bags and fill up the bread box in the kitchen every evening. But therefore I don't have to pay any rent and I get to have my own room for the first time in 3 months. This is my experience so far. There's more to come. I don't know what my future plans are yet, but all I know is I need to work as hard and as much as possible to earn some good bucks so I can travel again. That is it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.